Hi, Kate. Thanks for joining the show today.
Hey Alex, thanks for having me.
Of course. And to get started, can you give the audience a little bit of history and background in your journey in UX research?
Yeah, so it's pretty similar to a lot of the original UXers out there,
Mhm.
as in we didn't start in UX and it just kind of found us. So I was actually a nursing school dropout.
Yeah.
My dad was a software engineer and he's like, you should go into computers. And I was like, I'm never going to be a nerd like you. And fast forward 7 years, here we are. So it was just a series of marketing internships that turned into consumer insights that through acquisitions of companies, I somehow ended up with the title of UX strategist, UX researcher. And I took it and I ran with it. Like, there's a lot of really cool opportunity here. I get to pretty much watch people for a living, which is really creepy, but also very fascinating
Yeah.
for the researchers out there. And so I stuck with it. And since then, I've just taken every opportunity to learn where I can and learn from different parts of the UX organization and just staying really plugged into the conversation around it. And because it's evolving so fast.
I think UX research specifically is even, at least from just my pulse on it, seems like there's less of a concrete roadmap of how to do it exactly perfectly. Like what are kind of the truths around it?
Yeah, so there are a lot of myths and misconceptions about, first of all, what is UX research?
Yeah.
Some of us see us as oracles, some of us see us as validators, some of us see us as, somehow we're going to come up with the mind-blowing next billion-dollar idea.
Yeah.
But really at the heart of what UX research is the art of asking really good questions. And so it's being able to pull away from the flashy designs, the widgets, obvious behaviors and trends, and seeing, what are people actually doing and
Mhm.
why, and being able to just ask those questions and essentially play dumb and letting folks, school us, let them be the expert on how they navigate their lives instead of us trying to be like, hey, we're trying to make this widget. How can we make the most money off of this widget? And so I think that's the biggest thing is just being able to ask those questions, be humble, and being able to just understand the high level view of the context and the environments that people are
Mhm.
in and what is the actual goal that they're trying to achieve. So I think if you can make that connection, you can do UX research.
I think that's a good point. How are you doing that in the airline space? That's a interesting area and always an interesting experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what's really exciting about travel is everyone does it. We're seeing a massive influx in first time travelers,
Yeah.
which I'm sure, as you could understand, is like I think of my parents who've flown twice in their lifetime. They're trying to figure out how apps work. They still want to print out
Yeah.
their boarding pass. They're confused as to what gate they need to go to. Okay, multiply that by 10,000, 100,000. And next thing you know, like you have an airport that's just erupted into chaos before they even get onto their plane.
Yeah.
So what we do is, first and foremost is we need to understand what's happening leading up to the day of travel. So, how are people booking travel? How are they researching travel? And that comes from just asking questions, doing interviews. But my favorite part is then what's happening day of travel, and that requires just showing up to the airport. There is no better way than just, sit down, get your popcorn, take some notes and just watch. First of all, like going through the experience that your user has to in the actual experience, it's going to create what everyone loves to hate, the concept of empathy. And
Yeah.
that's really what it takes. We hear empathy all the time in UX, and it's exciting because it's important, but it's also frustrating because no one actually knows what it is, and they throw the word around a
Yeah.
lot because it gets that LinkedIn engagement and it makes you look good.
Yeah.
But really, like what it is just going and doing it and feeling those frustrations and being confused, like allowing yourself to be a first time user in any experience is going to make you a much better designer. It's going to make you a much more better researcher. Honestly, it just makes you a better person. my humble opinion.
That's great advice. Yeah, I mean, you really do need to walk 10,000 miles in your user's shoes if you want to create a great experience. So research almost has to kind of stick through until product release or launch, or is that a correct assumption? Like, it's not like do this research, hand it off, go do more research. You actually kind of have to follow your research all the way through to release.
Yeah, so that's a really great question. And there's the way that it should work in a perfect world, and then there's the way that it works in real life. And so ideally, you're going to have a more successful product if research is involved in some sort of capacity throughout the entirety of the product lifecycle. That doesn't mean we need to be in every kickoff call. We don't need to be in every design decision. It's, let's just make sure that, at various stages of designs, that we're involved, but also at the same time, UX research isn't just usability testing. We have such a diverse range of skills that we have discovery and innovation research all the way at the very beginning to determine, does this product even need to exist? What behaviors are we trying to implement and change? And if we don't ask those questions at the beginning, then we get to the end and we're like, hey, we have this great product. How good is it? That's a really big, we get that question all the time. How good is this product? Well, how good was the original product? Or, what was your baseline? And if you don't have that, you can't even measure success for your product. And so what research does, and when you incorporate it throughout, so you have your discovery research, and then you have, usability testing at various parts of the design, you're able to see like how close are we tracking to what we were hoping, the behaviors we were trying to change at the beginning. Because it's not about building a product, it's about changing behavior.
What about people looking to get into UX research? What advice do you have for those new emerging researchers or junior researchers?
So I run a mentorship program called Element UX. And one of the biggest things that I've seen is I want to get into UX, and research seems like the easiest way to get into UX. And I just like, wait a second. Research is one of those things where it's kind of fun, but it's also a little stressful. There is no right or wrong answer. A lot of people have a lot of opinions about it, but really what it comes down to, and especially when I'm looking to hire, one of the biggest things that I look at is what kinds of questions are you asking, and how are you getting to those answers? And another issue that I see is folks spend the most incredible amount of time on their portfolios. Don't waste your time. What we're looking for is, how do you ask questions? How do you approach a problem? And how are you able to articulate how you approach that problem and got to a reasonable solution? The number one mistake that I see folks making is they don't talk about the problem that their design or their research is trying to either solve or understand. The reason why UX exists is to solve contextual problems. And so if you can't speak to what that problem is and the journey that it took you to get to the solution, I don't care how cute or pretty your designs are.
Yeah.
They could be the most mind-blowing designs out there, but that's not UX, that's graphic design. Or that's just, I don't even know what you'd call that in the research world, because without a problem, there is no research.
I think that's golden advice to anyone listening. And yeah, I think it always comes down to communicating what you've designed or what you've found. Thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.